What is up, guys? My name is Matt, and welcome to a different type of video. Now, for people who don't know me, you might be like, who's this weirdo trying to talk about TV and all that? Well, my name is Matt, and I am a massive cartoon nerd. And at the moment, currently, my favorite series is The Owl House. Which, if you don't know what The Owl House is, it's a brand new series on Disney Channel, mainly following a human named Luz, trying to learn to become a witch from her mentor named Ida, and her their little companion friend King. That's the basic premise of the show. There you go, people. So, in the spirit of Halloween, and in the spirit of The Owl House Season 1 dropping on Disney Plus recently, I've decided to rank the videos from, not the videos, but the episodes from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, depending on when this is uploaded, depending on how long it dropped, either it dropped the day this video comes out, the 30th of October, yep, that's the month, or it dropped yesterday, because today's Halloween. I feel like this video fits either kind of day, since it's a lot of spookier stuff in the series and witches and such. So I felt like, hey, either day works. So it just depends on when I get all this done, because as of recording this, I got a week. So let's do this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with episode 19, not actually episode 19, but like my 19th favorite, and work my way up to number 1. If I remember, I'll give a brief description of like what happened in that episode, say some opinions on each episode, and then move on from there. So, also, when I say hopefully this doesn't take so long, I mean like this is like my biggest editing thing I've done ever, because like usually what I do is just put the audio next to the video and move on, but recently I've started to kick in the high gear, if you understand what I mean, starting to get a little bit better with this. So who knows where I get with this, but hopefully I get pretty far with this. So to kick off this whole thing, my least favorite episode is episode 8, whatever, number 19, Once Upon a Swap. Now this episode essentially is the stereotypical body swap episode where the characters get into a bunch of different shenanigans in each other's bodies. I hate that. Like, it's one of those tropes that I just can't stand. I don't know why. It was just, ever since I was a kid, and like, that kind of concept never sat well with me. So, seeing an episode with that, it kind of just didn't really catch my fancy. It's still a good episode, though. Like, it gives a bunch of revelations about some of the characters, like Ida wanting to be in the Emperor's Coven and such, but still, it's just that kind of episode. Not much happens, really. So that's basically it. Like, there's not too much more to say. Like, a lot of the earlier episodes in this list, they don't have much. In my opinion, they don't offer much to talk about. Like, Body Swap episode, that's about it. Like, everything else is just kind of, it happens and then it moves on. Number 18, we've got Wizards Before Witches, the second episode of the entire series. This is not a bad episode. Again, like, none of the episodes are bad. They're all good. Trust me. Like, if I ranked them, they'd be all, like, at least a 6 or higher. Like, they're all good. But Witches Before Wizards, again, like, in this episode, it's the second day of Luz being on the Boiling Isles. And she does some errands with King for Ida, and then she goes on this magical grand quest to discover her destiny, essentially. In this episode, it's still good. Like, the main villain, he's huge, but like the puppeteer kind of character, I like that idea. It's really cool. But overall, it's just kind of a blanderish episode for me. And like, I'm also not a fan of like King and Ida messing with Luz, not pestering her, but like making fun of her for believing that destiny is a thing, that she has like her destiny's been predetermined and all that, and she's meant for greatness. I'm not really a fan of that, but also it makes sense because your future isn't set in stone. Like, you get to make your own future. It's not predetermined or anything. But still, I'm just not a fan of that. They could have been a little more supportive. They were supportive in the end when they had to save her, but besides that. But yeah, Wing It Before Witches. Not bad again, but still okay. Now we got number 17, HOOTY'S Moving Hassle. Now this episode, again, to me it's more of a filler episode still. A lot of these earlier ones I'm realizing are filler-ish type episodes. Not all, but some of them are. And it's okay, like, we get more knowledge about the backstory. Well, in this episode, it's basically like a sleepover episode, but with magic. And it goes wrong, and literally the whole owl house just leaves. Essentially, and that's it. And basically, in the thing, the main thing we get, like the main bits of information we get is the more backstory between between Amity and Willow, which will pay off later in the end when we get more and more, thankfully. But yeah, I really like them like dropping like bits of information, like they used to be friends, but then they separated being friends for reasons that we didn't know at the time. And I like that, because a good series has mysteries like sprinkled here and there to keep the people interested and see what it is, like what happened to Amity and Willow. And that's pretty good. But besides that, there's not too much that happens. Like, we get glimpses of Amity sleep over at her mansion, essentially, and that's okay. The main villains, which are the hunter characters, they're okay. Not like they don't know, like they show up one more time, but we don't get much about them. I don't know. I feel like they could have been something a little bit more interesting, but still. But another question that it brings up is, what is Hooty? Like, the house has legs. What is he? He's an infinite tube. Like, what is he? We don't know. Hopefully we get more information, because that's probably one of the biggest mysteries. Is like, what even is he? But, you know, besides all that, besides that, not too much happens. So that's number 17, HOOTY'S Moving Hassle. Next, with number 16, we've got Something Ventured, Someone Framed. In this episode, Gus, another character in the series, if you don't know, hopefully you know, but yeah, Gus, he's in charge of a club that basically appreciates humans, and a new member's trying to overthrow him. So he brings Luz back into Hexside, the school, where she's basically illegal to be there. Like, she's banned and not supposed to be there. And a bunch of hijinks ensue, as per usual with most animated shows. But yeah, again, this episode, not too much happens. Like, it further leads to Luz learning magic as she starts to begin her journey through Hexside and learning magic through the school. And then we also learn that Gus kind of feels like a little insecure being like the youngest person having skipped grades, so that's kind of understandable. But yeah, my main thing I did not like about this episode was Matholomew. Even though my name's Matt, he just brings he's just a disgrace to the name of Matt. Trust me, I do not like characters like that. Like, an easy way for me to hate characters is if they're like that. I don't even want to talk about them anymore. The little hall monitor character. Why do I keep saying little? Whatever. But the hall monitor characters, like the guys with the masks, they're pretty cool. Like, they're it's an interesting concept, but again, we don't get too much information on them. Like, they kind of smell trouble and then they send kids into detention, which is cool. But I don't know. I feel like a little bit more could have been done with them, but that's just me. I'm not in the room where it happened. I'm not deciding what gets made into a show and what's not. But yeah, that's been Something Ventured, Someone Framed. Number 15, we got Escape of the Palisman, the winter finale of the series, and which started a few month started like a half-year hiatus. And in this episode, Luz and her friends are going to basically a sports game. Might be Grudgeby, I don't know. don't remember they specify, but they go to a sports game. Something happens, and Albert, Ida's Palisman, gets injured, and they have to try and get him back from the not the Owl Queen, the Bat Queen, one of my least favorite one of my least favorite characters, if not my least favorite. I just do not like her. She's really creepy and weird, and I don't know, it bothers me. She bothers me a little bit. But yeah, one thing I do like about this episode, though, is that it starts to build future plot lines, none of which that we've really explored yet. Like, one thing is what happened to the Bat Queen's owner, and hopefully we get some backstory on that, even though we're gonna have to see her again, but that's just me. I'd rather not see. I'd like to get the backstory on her without even seeing her again, but again, that's just me. Another thing that it starts to ask is, how are Palisman made? Like, at this point, we really only know that they're made from an ancient tree, and that's about it. So, like, is there more magic involved? Is there some sort of, like, big ritual that happens? We don't know, and I feel like that's something that could be pretty important to know later on going through the show. The B plot with King and Ida as well. It's okay. Like, we start to see that the potion that Ida's been taking to help with her curse is wearing off. It's not really working as well. But that doesn't come into play again. Like, that happens in episode 10, and the next time the curse is even mentioned is literally like 8 episodes later, like in the finale, which I felt like, I don't know, that feels like too big of a gap for something that crucial. Like, something, I feel like something should have happened sooner, but again, that's just me. But yeah, escape the Palisman. That's basically it. Now we got number 14, which was I Was a Teenage Abomination. One of the most important episodes, some people would say, because it introduced some of the main cast, including Amity, Willow, and Gus. It's a good episode, like I mentioned before. Like, if I were to rank these episodes, this is probably like a 7. Like the ones before, about 6. This one's starting at a 7. This episode, it introduces Hexside and a school of magic. It introduces the characters, primarily with Amity being more of a bully character starting out, which thankfully changes because I don't know. I like seeing growth in characters at a decent rate, and not like a character suddenly going through major changes in the final episode, like several shows have done, which doesn't really fit. We also get to see. Well, we also get a glimpse at the Abomination track, which is one of the 9 primary tracks that people go into, and I don't know. It's not really my favorite of the covens, but it's still not covens, but one of the tracks. But it's still pretty interesting. Like, in a later episode, we see like they can make abominations into like balloons and stuff, and then another episode after that, we see it like literally a giant abomination arm. So it's like, what else could you do with that kind of magic? But I don't know, we'll probably find out some other time. So that's basically it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention what happened in this episode. In this episode, Luz finds a magic school, essentially, makes friends there, and stuff happens. Primarily with Amity trying to get her dissected. That's literally about it. I could totally call this video trash descriptions of the Owl House episodes ranked. I could do that if I wanted to, but who knows what I'm gonna do, because that's a future me problem. Now we're at number 13, Sense and Insensitivity. In this episode, it's essentially Luz and King writing a book. And King kind of steals some of Luz's ideas, which is illegal, by the way. Don't do that. And he becomes a successful author. That's basically it. I like this episode. Like, I know this is another filler episode. I feel like people are gonna be like, that's a filler episode, not as good, but I don't know. I like it. We start to see more of a connections between Luz and King, which I always enjoy. We also get to see not much else. Honestly, a lot of these episodes, like, not too much happens. Like, we get some funny moments. Like, we get some really good quotes, like, don't you dare insult shipping in my presence. Like, that's gold. Hopefully that still works, because my screen turned off for a second. But back to the animation, back to the TV, because that's what's important here, guys. But yeah, pretty good episode. The antagonist, which was the publisher, essentially, he's okay. He basically just represents corporate America, in my opinion, just like forcing people to do stuff quickly to make them money and stuff, which is not good, and that's toxic mentality. But let's get away from that, because that's a touchy subject. Now we're on to episode 12, Adventures in the Elements. Another fantastic episode. This episode, we see Luz trying to get ready to go to Hexside, and she needs to learn a new spell. So she and Ida go to a place called the Knee, which is just like a mountain, and she learns magic there with Amity, Emra, and Edric there as well. This is a great episode. Like, we start to see Luz and Amity starting to warm up more to each other. We start to see Amity starting to learn more magic. Like, Amity starts learning magic without like a training wand, which is pretty cool. We also see how Luz will learn magic going on with the series through the glyphs, like as she sees them in nature and stuff, which, again, I feel like is a really cool way of doing magic. Like with the bile sac and the witch, that's a cool idea, but I'm more of an old-fashioned type of person, and like using glyphs and like enchantments and stuff like that, which always been a fan of, honestly. That's just me. We also, like King's side plot of him basically being a dictator to stuffed animals, it's not important. We don't talk about that. But yeah, Adventures in the Elements, pretty good, honestly. I started. No, actually, this is still a 7. Yeah, the next couple ones are 7s. But yeah, that's a pretty good one. Now we're at number 11, which is A Lying Witch and a Warden, the first episode of the series, which basically just introduces the main characters and one of the antagonists of the series, the Warden Wrath. I like it. It's a good episode. Now, one thing that this is like my second time recording this, and I'm stealing an idea from the first recording because that was a bad video, but one thing I had said, which I completely agree with, is that you want to start a series like in the middle of content. Like, say you have a scale from 1 to 10 or 0 to 10 or whatever. You want to have like the first few episodes in the middle. So you want to give some people some action, but you don't want to show everyone your full hand. Like in the first series, we start to see the idea of magic, and also there being like this whole new world and stuff like that. But they keep it secluded. Like you stay in the market, the Owl House, which we stay there for like 3 minutes, and then we go to the Conformatorium, which I like because it allows for future building, like more locations, more friends, enemies, creatures, stuff like that. And I love that because, like, if they were to throw like everything at you like some series do, like in the first episode, that's kind of just like, oh, we know most of the stuff that's already gonna happen, so there's nothing gonna be new, nothing surprising, anything like that, which is not good. But with the Owl House, they started good, but not showing everything. Like, it's a good episode. Like I said, it's like a 7, but there's stuff that they show later on that's like, whoa, I didn't know something like that could happen in this series, which is pretty good. Again, but also sometimes you gotta bring it down to a lower level with like the filler episodes, just to kind of like, you can't like always just have non-stop action. You have to have some lower points, but with those lower points, it'll make the bigger moments even bigger, which is something that's really good, honestly, if you ask me. But yeah, A Lying Witch and a Warden, it's what started it all, and I am glad that Disney picked this up for 2 seasons already. Now that I mention it, hopefully they get to 3rd, maybe more, who knows. But yeah, now we're entering the top 10, like an actual number that people actually care about, not a top 19 list. But yeah, number 10 is Really Small Problems. This episode, the whole gang, they go basically to a carnival run by Tibbles, who is one of the antagonists from a few episodes ago. But again, this is like the only other time we see him, not too much, and he ends up shrinking Luz, King, Gus, and Willow. again, vague description. I do not want, like, if you want to see this episode, like these episodes will be on Disney Plus, so go watch it there, which would be pretty good. But yeah, this episode, it's good. Trust me, it's good. Like, again, not too much happens, which I enjoy. Like, we start to see, again, this is like where we start to see a lot more between Luz and King. Like, a few episodes prior to this was Sense and Insensitivity, and we started to see a little bit of it. But at this point, we start to see that King really does care about Luz and, like, wants to be her friend and all that, which I always enjoy in a series, trust me. But yeah, besides that, there's not too much. Like, we just see Tibbles is gonna be like, grr, I hate you all, but... And that's basically it with him. This episode, again, not too much happens, but... I don't know, I just really like this episode. That's just me. Okay, so now at number 9, we got The First Day. This episode, it's Luz's first day at school. And she ends up getting in trouble and meeting 3 new characters. Them being Gerbo, Barkus, and Viney. Those characters, I've never seen in a fandom where, like, one character who's in, like, one episode just sparked a flame that just annihilated everything. Like, if you don't know, there's a ship known as Vinera, which is Viney and Emera. It's spread like wildfire. Like, someone literally just looked at the 2 characters and like, now kiss. You 2 need to kiss. And it spread like wildfire. It's like the second most favorite ship in the whole series. Second or third most favorite ship in the series. It is crazy how, like, just some character that's literally only in for like 10-20 minutes of a series, and then, like, they're just like, this is the best character ever, and they start worshiping them. That's what you want. Like, you don't want, like, everyone just worshiping a random character, but no, like, that's one thing you gotta do. Like, with characters that aren't as that you don't see as often or as important, you want to make them memorable, which is always great. Like, some characters like Principal Bump, the detention track kids, they're not in as many episodes, but some of the things that they do grab your attention. It's like, oh, they're interesting, I want to learn more about them, which is something that's always which is really interesting, like, you ask me. Also in this episode, we get the confirmation of, like, well, never mind, we don't get the confirmation in all of them, but that was later on in the path. That was in, like, several episodes prior, but we get, like, more details on some of the other tracks, which is always pretty interesting. Like, the Oracle track is stuff that dealing with spirits and stuff like that, and potions, it's dealing with potions, but if you didn't know, but still. But yeah, The First Day, really great episode. This is like the first episode this is the first episode I rank it an 8 out of all of the episodes. Now we're at number 8, which is Lost in Language. This is some people's favorite episode. I know it's like a middle of the series, but you gotta admit, like, the second half of the season popped off. Like, you gotta admit that. But still, in this episode, basically, Luz goes to the library and then gets in a bunch of shenanigans with Edric and Emera, whatever you want to call them, and Amity's there trying to keep them from getting in too much trouble. Essentially, I really do like this episode. Like, it's the very beginning of where like seeing the relationship between Luz and Amity, because this is Amity's 3rd episode. Technically, I don't really count Hooty's Moving Castle as an episode for her, because we see her for like 2 minutes total. But, like, in her first episode, she's the bully character and stuff like that. In the 5th episode, we start to see, like, her goals and stuff like that, and she starts to warm up to Luz, saying that they've got similar goals. In this episode, though, we see, like, her rough exterior finally break, and we see the warmer part of her. Like, she starts to laugh, she starts to smile, especially around Luz, for pretty obvious reasons, but that's besides the point. And I like that. Like I mentioned before earlier in this video, like, in some series they wait forever, like, with the character's growth, and it stays like that, and then they just change suddenly. But with the Owl House, it makes actual progress in a steady rate. Like, in like 2 episodes, she's essentially a bully character, but she changes. Like, for some people, it takes one moment, one person to change someone, and they change. Like, they slowly do change, and that's what happened here. Like, it just took Luz being, like, completely open with Amity about her goals wanting to be a witch, and Amity started to realize, wait a minute, maybe some of the things I've done are wrong. Maybe I could change. And she does. And I love that. Like, they do it really quickly. If you want to get, like, a really good synopsis of Amity's character, go watch It's Rebecca Rose's video on how to build a bully in a series. It's like a look at Amity as a character. One of the best videos I've ever seen. So if you've made it this far, go check that out if you haven't already, because it's a masterpiece if you ask me. But yeah, overall this is a really good episode. That creature, which was Odabin, I love that design. Like, it's creepy, but it's also kind of like, it keeps some of like the childish parts of him, but like as it gets tampered with, you see him start to change, and I love that. But yeah, that has been the first day. Now, this is another one that I feel like I could get pretty controversial for. Number 7 is Youngblood Old Souls, part 2 of the finale of the season. Now, a lot of people are probably gonna be like, what? It's a great episode, or it's bad, it should be lower, or something like that. I don't know, people have opinions, but still, I feel like it was a good episode. It starts to set up a bunch of key ideas, like key things, like what's Luz gonna do now that she doesn't have the portal. By the way, this episode, it's like a rescue mission episode where Luz and King try and save Ida. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, it's a good thing. Like, we start, like, Luz is trapped now in the Boiling Isles, so now it's kind of like, what will she do? How will she get home? So that's a interesting way. Like, they can bring a bunch of interesting ways up to how she gets home. Another interesting thing is, who was Bellows? Who was Emperor Bellows? It's like, we know nothing about him. From the unofficial history of the Boiling Isles, or unofficial history of Emperor Bellows, or whatever that book King has is called, it's basically saying he comes from nowhere. Like, he just shows up one day and takes control. Like, he organizes the witches, and he just becomes in charge. No one knows where he came from. No one knows anything about him. That's something interesting. Like, another good YouTube channel you should check out is The Round Table, which they do a bunch of good theories. One video they had is saying that Bellows is human. But he's other things what they say, but I'll let you guys watch that video. But he's essentially human, so he can't do magic, which would explain why his staff is more mechanical and doesn't have a Palisman. It also explains the stonification machine, which I'm going to call the stonification machine, because I don't know if they've called it a name or anything like that, but it's called the stonification machine now. That's more machine than magic, which is interesting if you think about it. And if you start to put that together, it's like, is he even capable of normal magic? Also, there's the other part of him, like, cracking open a talisman, not a palisman, a palisman. He cracks open a palisman like a coconut and just slurps up the goop inside. That's literally what happens. And it's like, what are you? Who are you? What is your deal? What do you want the portal? What are you going to do? And that's what makes a good series. It's like, it takes a bunch of ideas and it's like, just cuts them in half. It's like, here's the beginning of the idea. Now you won't know what happens several years down the line, maybe. Like, honestly, at the rate of the series is going, we'll probably learn what his plan is for the portal and stuff by season 2 finale, probably. But still, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know, and I like that. But yeah, that has been Youngblood Old Souls. Number 6. Now, I know this is going to get some people being like, why is this so low on the list? And that's actually Covention. Not Convention, Covention. Covention. This episode, I feel like this episode was the first episode that people started to, like, pay attention to the Owl House. Because in this episode, it's basically a convention for witches to see which kind of coven they want to join. It introduces Lilith, Ida's sister, and it starts to build some ideas. It's like can you join only one coven, which I'm pretty sure they say. Also, it's like, can you do more than one track, stuff information like that. What's the Emperor's Coven's deal, which we know some not now, but still. And that's kind of like, it's good. Also, the animation, Spencer Wan, chef's kiss. Chef's kiss to your animation. Like, that battle between Ida and Lilith, that's some of the best animation I've seen in my life. And that's only in the 5th episode. Like, we get a lot of beautiful animation moments in the series, and I can't wait to see more. And that's stuff that, like, grabbed people's attention. It's like, I saw the clip of the two of them fighting go around the internet like wildfire, like the day after it aired. And everyone started watching the series and like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. Maybe I should start watching. And it did. Like, after that, we started to see some amazing things. Which I'll go into in a minute, because I plan to do like a little break to talk about some people. Not people, but some people, but just some stuff. But yeah, it's another great episode. Starts to move stuff forward with the series, and it's great. Now, before we get into the top 5, I felt like shouting out some people, because some of these people are like amazing. Like, they've done so much for the Owl House community, and it's just like, if I can help them in any way, then might as well do it. First of all, I want to shout out Dana Terrace, the creator of the Owl House. Like, she created something that's influential and something that's so just pure, that's just, it's amazing. Like, several times the Owl House community has just like stormed Twitter with stuff from the series, and it's like, it's hard to do that. Like, several series I've seen nothing happen. Like Adventure Time, I only saw like it trend whenever the finale happened. Regular show, I didn't see anything for that when it ended or anything. Infinity Train, I've seen it trend a couple times to try and get it keep going. The Owl House, I've seen it trend like a dozen times separately since I've started watching it. That's impressive. And it only takes something that's actually like good for something like that to happen. And she is done. She's blown it out of the water. And I know she'll never see this, but like, I respect it. I respect like all that she's done and like what she's going for and trying to tell a story and everything she's sacrificed to do it. But yeah, I've said Rebecca Rose before. I've said the Roundhouse Table. They do amazing theory videos, stuff like that. And there's also all the people that do like beautiful animations and art. Like, we got, gosh, I can't read. Kaereth, at Kaereth. They do amazing art for the Owl House, and it's just amazing. Trust me, dude, or Case, or whatever you call them. I follow like all their accounts, and it's just amazing, dude. There's like 2 more things I want to shout out. I'm literally having to scroll through Twitter. We got Mercurio, who's been doing some pretty good like animations and animatics and stuff. We got Dulce Adraws, Dulceadraws, who did a breathtaking, ordinary animatic. I wish I could read. And then we also got that one dork that draws, who did a beautiful Little Miss Perfect animation. It's people like this and so many more that keep people interested in this show and shows and all that. And if it's not for them, people like that, we wouldn't have this. We wouldn't have such an amazing fandom. So, just to everyone that I mentioned, people I didn't mention, thank you. Like, it's with your help that we've got something magical here. Pun intended. But now, let's go ahead and drop into the top 5. Number 5, we got Understanding Willow. In this episode, we see Amity try and separate herself more from Willow, essentially. Even though they're not friends anymore, she's trying to separate them more, and accidentally wipes her memories. So she and Luz have to go in there and fix her. And first of all, that's an ingenious idea. It's like someone wanting to not be someone that's so bad that they accidentally just destroy them, and then forcing them to go relive the past to fix them. I love that idea. We also get more cute Lumity moments, which is always a plus. And then we also get some important information. We get to meet her parents. We get to meet Odalia and Alador Blight, which are their canon names. Trust me. I had to think about that for a second, and it's a pain to say. But yeah, we see that they're not the most supportive parents. They quote unquote establish themselves with the strong and not with the weak, which is something interesting. But it's also that, and also something that I've not mentioned, but something that I've done myself, and hopefully that's a future video. But yeah, some stuff happens with them. It's like people are kind of like, they're not good parents. And it's kind of like seeing like, what else have they done to her? What have they done to their kids? Like, what else is happening? And that's something that it's fueled the Owl House fandom with hatred for them. And I'm like, dang. But yeah, but there's also so much we don't know about them. Like in the AMA that Dana did like a month or so ago, she said there's more to these characters than we know. Maybe we'll find out their true ambitions, like why they're actually doing this. Which hopefully we do, because I want to know more about them. Like, we know so little about them that we're only seeing it from one side of the perspective. I want to see it from all angles and see what else is happening. But yeah, Understanding Willow, great episode. Now we're on to episode 4, which before season 1B dropped, this was my favorite episode. And it's actually The Intruder. This episode, as I written in my very sparse notes, it's a catalyst. Like, this episode, it catalyzes so many key moments in the series and starts so many things. First, it starts with Luz learning magic, which catalyzes and builds on her, like, eventually going to Hexside, learning magic, which leads to her, what she does in the finale against Bellows. I don't want to spoil too much. We get King, who starts to warm up with the characters. We start to get a little bit of glimpse about his character and stuff, which thankfully we're going to get more in season 2 when it drops someday. Hopefully not in like 2022. I don't want to wait forever. And then we also get stuff on Ida, like the beginning of her curse, like what happened a little bit. Like we get like a small background of the curse, and we also see what it does. And that's something that is a crucial moment moving forward through the series, especially in the finale. And I like that. Like you have to build on stuff. Like I mentioned before, like you want to have like the first few episodes be like pretty mid-tier, and then after that you want to build. And they did that great. Like the first few episodes, they were pretty tame, and then this episode like jumps, and it's like, whoa, this is dark, this is interesting, this is stuff that I want to keep invested in. And that's why stuff like this and then Understanding Willow and Convention are like a 9 for me in this series. Like, they are amazing. Like, it's stuff like episodes like these that are important to building the characters and their story. And that's why it's up high on my list. Now, number 3, we got Agony of a Witch, part 1 of the finale. And I remember seeing the internet explode at the end. In this episode, basically, it's Luz going on a field trip to the Emperor's Castle to get a magic item to help Ida with her curse. And a lot of stuff happens in this episode. First of all, the fight between Lilith and Ida at the end, again, hands down, one of the best things I've seen in animation. Hats off to Spencer Wan and the crew, to Dan Terrace and the crew. That stuff is amazing. I can't wait to see more stuff like that. And another thing that I not mentioned before in this video, but in the previous recording, I'd said, like, and you do like 2-parters or 3-parters, stuff like that, you want to keep each, like, you kind of want to end it where people are interested in what happens. And they did that beautifully. Like, you don't want to have, like, them, I don't know, you don't have, like, a dull episode and then a big one, like, second part, because if you have a dull one at first, people be like, I don't know, maybe I don't want to watch it, and they stop watching it, which is not good. But if you build something up, and then like build something up in the finale, like part one of a video or episode or whatever, people will be enticed to come back. Even if the next one's not as good, it still gets people to watch it, which will ask more questions, answer some questions, and get more people to watch. Like this episode, like with these, like Youngblood Old Soul, like I mentioned before, it's still a good episode. But again, it's kind of like, it's still okay. I would say the first part was better, and that's good, because it'll get people to keep watching the show. But that's just my opinion. I'd rate this episode a 10, easily. Like, one of the best episodes. And now we're at the final 2. And if you've been keeping track, you know which two these are. It's kind of obvious why. But let's just jump into it, actually. Number 2 is Wing It Like Witches. And this is a stereotypical sports episode. Basha, like the main school bully, has been pestering Willow and Luz and Gus for a while. So Luz is like, okay, we'll challenge you to a grudge match, which is a sport there. And hijinks ensue. Literally, that's how the series works. Is like something happens, hijinks ensue. That's how that works. And this is, first of all, this episode, the main reason it's like my second favorite is because of just the gay disaster that Amity is. Like she can't even keep her words. Like she can barely speak a sentence like I can. Better than I can, honestly. And we see her be really flushed and stuff like that. And that's one thing that I've missed in so many shows. That's love. Like, in so many shows, they show love as like, oh, these characters are like just like nice and warm to each other, like right off the bat. That rarely happens. Love is complicated. Love is messy, and they nailed it. I don't know from personal experience because I'm alone, but ignore that. But and stuff like that. Like we see Amity be nervous and stuff to try and talk to her crush, and that's something that like is always appreciated in my opinion. Just, like getting like better representation of like how people actually are in a series, and that's always a good thing in my opinion. Not too much else happens in this episode. Like Amity like officially becomes part of the main group essentially, and by that I mean she joins the group and then is booted from the series until next season. Literally it, but still we get a lot from her. And we get a lot of potential for Luz and Amity. And now we're at number 1, Enchanting, Grom, Fright. Literally, it's a prom episode. I thought I wouldn't. When I first heard the series, it's like not knowing anything. Like when I first heard the episode titles and like before getting synopsis and anything for those, it's kind of like, oh, it's a prom episode. It's gonna be okay. And then people were like, then it clicked, Lumity. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. And then the episode actually dropped. And I was like, oh my, this is amazing. First of all, that animation dance scene between them versus Prometheus, the villain, which is beautiful. The music is breathtaking. The outfits, the character design for that is amazing. And back to Prometheus, that's one of the best character designs I've seen in a while. Like, I've always been interested in the concept of fear for characters, because it's like, you can build so much off that. That's what I love. Like, with Luz, we see her fear is kind of like not living up to like expectations for like Ida, and she's also afraid of going home. Like, she's afraid of going back to her life of being ignored, like bullied, stuff like that. And that's something that a lot of people suffer with. And like, it helps build the characters, and I love that. Amity's fear is being rejected by Luz. That's something that everyone can relate with. And we see her go past that, grow, and become a better character because of that, which inspires people to do so. And that's great, honestly. And then, but another thing about this episode is that it drops a mystery at the end. Because at the end, we see someone sending letters to Luz's mom. Who's doing that? The idea of Creepy Luz, or whatever, was shot down immediately by Dana, so that's gone. So now we're just kind of like, who's sending it? Could it have been Lilith? Could it have been the Emperor's Coven? Could it be someone we don't know yet? And that's something that is gonna keep people talking about it for a little bit. So yeah, those are some of the reasons why Enchanting, Grom, Fright is my favorite Owl House episode. So that has been that. Hopefully, I'm proud of this recording. I'm gonna just say this in front of all you, but I'm proud of this. So now I just gotta edit all that, which is something that's gonna be a challenge for me. I gotta add all those pictures and stuff like that. I might add pictures. Hopefully, I'll probably add pictures. Yeah, I don't want it to just be a black video and just me talking. But no, I'm probably gonna add pictures. Maybe add music if I can figure out how to do that. But yeah, like I'm actually pretty glad with this. Like, I don't know. Like some of the people I mentioned before, like they do great stuff. If someone could be like, oh yeah, you do good stuff like that too, it'll make my day. But still, enough of me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below about how you do, like how you feel about this, like how you would rank the episodes, how and stuff like that. Like the video so I can know if you like more Owl House content. Subscribe if you want to see just other content in general. Like I've some ranking videos in the past, but it's been a minute, so I might go back to those at some point. I have some series which are somehow being watched, but still. But yeah, hit the bell as well so you don't miss any episode whenever they do drop. Hopefully they drop